Hey, how's everyone? This is the Melvin Live Show, and in today, have not if you have not watched the episode yesterday about the whole idea of digital business and how digital business is very much different from a traditional business, because in a traditional business you have to think about employees, you have to think about raising funds, and you have to think about growth. Well, so in a way, most startups are modeled around that framework itself. But what makes it so unique for a digital business is because we do not need to be constrained by those things. I mean, I do not know about you, but I have no desire to be managing a group of employees more than 20 people. I mean, I just want to manage a small group of contractors and subcontractors who are able to help me perform the work and who are able to help me expedite the work that needs to be done. But other than that, I do not have a wish to build a team. Yes, some people think it is selfish. I think otherwise. To me, if I am going to build the kind of company, then I should be 100% with the company itself. In other words, it shouldn't be a lifestyle thing. That would be my life. However, at this point in time, I'm not I am not in favor of going into that lifestyle itself. I want a specific lifestyle, and have been having that lifestyle for a while. So I want to continue with that lifestyle itself, and I want to now build a business that is able to support the lifestyle that I want going forward. Right. And that's why I chose one person, 1 million or digital business. Now, in case you are wondering, I have a website, and my website it's called melvin.me, as in melvyn.me. And so if you visit that site itself, you will find that I have actually revamp the site. And the way that I revamp the site is that I want to focus only on three things. I want to focus on, essentially, I want to focus on one thing. And that one thing is to become better every day. And in order for me to become better, there are basically three-pronged approach that I want to take. One, it's to be singular focus. That means I just want to focus on one thing at a time. I need to think strategically. In other words, whatever I do, it cannot be just a series of actions that I'm going to carry out, but it has to be strategic. So even if I'm reading, even if I'm doing a video like this, it has to be strategic. And thirdly, the third prong essentially is talking about a systems perspective. Now, here's the thing, because most of the time when people look at what they're doing, they immediately only look at the immediate group of people, right? So let's say between you and the customer, and that's what they see. But what we want to see is we want to go beyond that. And that's something that I've been training myself to do. At the same time, I've also been training managers and middle managers to do that. And so that has been my on my mind the whole time. And so Melvin.me is going to be focusing, singularly focused on just one aspect. And that one aspect is how I can become better every day. Now, when I say become better, it can be in the area of personal development, it can be in the area of business development, or it can be in the area of relationship development. So those are the three areas that I will be looking at. But the singular focus is to become better every day. So if you have not checked out, please do drop by melvin.me and check out the website. I have just revamped it, and the whole website right now is a dark theme website itself. All right, so let's get back to today's topic itself. Today, I want to share with you a framework. Now, before we talk about what exactly is this framework, what exactly is a framework? Now, a framework essentially is, if you like, a way to think about things that will inevitably help us arrive at a certain outcome itself. So having a framework is really crucial because what's embodied within the framework itself are essentially three things. Number one is there is a philosophy behind that. There is a philosophy, there is a belief, there is a way of doing things behind this framework itself. So first is a philosophy. Secondly, it's the perspective. Now, the perspective here again is related to system perspective. In other words, this framework is not just a standalone framework, but this framework it's to be able to impact or affect the other frameworks or other systems itself. So it's not a standalone, but it is more than that. And the third one is based on this framework itself, you would also have derived a series of practices. So, what are the things that you would do in order to carry out, to implement this framework itself? So, that is something that I have been, excuse me, that's have been something that I've been teaching schools here in Singapore and as well as the public sector in terms of how to formulate frameworks to kind of help them think about the strategies and the actions that they will put in place. And arguably, this has been one of the key things that kind of sets organizations apart because organizations, schools, institutions, um, organizations, whether it's public or private, once you have a framework to help you frame a particular aspect of things, it allows you to communicate that framework with your subordinates, with your team members, as well as with your suppliers and your partners itself. So it's a very, very key thing that you must have. So one of the things that I also teach is how do you formulate a framework? So, as I mentioned earlier, it goes down into the philosophy of things, it goes down into the perspective, and it looks also at the practices. And so, with that itself, that's the framework that we are talking about. So, now let's talk about how does a framework apply to in terms of a digital business. Now, what is different of a digital business compared to a brick and mortar business? Well, a digital business essentially focuses on selling things that can be delivered digitally. So, for instance, what are some of the things that can be delivered digitally? A logo, for example, can be delivered digitally. A um, a book can also be delivered digitally. An audio program can be delivered digitally. An online course can be delivered digitally. A catalytic course can be delivered digitally. So this is what makes a business a digital business. In other words, you may not have production costs like how it would be if you will be making a piano, right? Although yes, you can transact digitally. In other words, people can go online and add to cart and pay for the piano digitally. You will still need someone to actually send the piano to you. And so, that's not quite a digital business. If anything, that is just leveraging technology to facilitate the transaction, right? So for us, what we're looking at is a digital business. A digital business, in other words, you are able to sell information, knowledge, or skills to be able to help another person. Now, even at the level of a digital business, there are two levels, right? At one level, essentially, it's if you ask me, it's something like this, right? A video that I would do, I would live stream. But what does that mean? When I am live streaming right now, I mean, if you were to call my phone, I wouldn't be able to answer that without disrupting this live stream. And so, in other words, I am still, in a sense, trading time for money. I'm still, in a sense, cannot be at more than one places at the same time. However, what happened is that the once this entire episode is being captured, it's being streamed, and it's being digitalize. What this means is that I can then use this episode again and again and again and again and again. And so that is one level of digital business. So if you think about it, right, you cannot escape from being physically available or physically there to do something to create that product that can be digitalized, that can be, um, you know, transacted digitally. So even if you would think about an online course, for example, you still have to take time to record that, right? You still have to take time to record it. However, the beauty of it is that as opposed to a traditional business, if you are a trainer, after you're done with the training, if someone were to say that, hey, I want to attend that training, you would actually have to set aside another 8 hours or 6 hours, whatever the case may be, to be there to train that person. However, if you are building a digital business itself, then of course, what you're looking at is you are just creating this content one time, and this content can be used over and over and over and over and over again. So think of it like if you're selling software, right? You write the software, you write the app one time, and once it's done, it's done. And people can buy X number of copies of it. Speaking about that, you know, just last weekend itself, there was an app developer who created a new pack of iOS custom icons, and that custom icon happened to be picked up by MKHDB. And so when he put up in his video itself, that developer overnight, over a couple of days later, earn close to 100,000 US dollars, right? And so he only needed to make that icon pack one time, and he can resell it over and over and over again. So that's the kind of a business that we're looking at, because individually as a one person business, it is just not feasible and not viable if you at the, every time a someone puts in a transaction or someone put in a purchase for your product or service, and you have to be there to deliver that, then that is not a digital business. Number one. Number two is that you cannot scale that business itself, right? And so, as I mentioned earlier, if you, as I mentioned yesterday, if you are looking at creating, generating a $1 million revenue, you're gonna be looking at 500 over dollars per hour, and that's something that I think most people, it's kind of out of reach for most people itself, right? So the framework that I want to share with you essentially is a four-prong framework. Now, whenever we go into a digital business, one of the key aspects of a digital business, or for that matter, if you are doing business on the internet, there is really no barriers to entry. And what do I mean by that? If you think about, if you want to set up a shop, right? Like for instance, my sister-in-law, both my sister-in-laws just started last year a vegan store, a physical store, right? And they use their website to actually get people to place their order and then collect it at their store. And so for someone like that, in order for them to set up that business itself, there is a barrier to entry, because if they do not have the sources, of suppliers who are able to give them the vegan products itself, then it's going to be a concern. They wouldn't be able to set up a shop. So, access to suppliers, access to sources, to so that you can bring in these products to sell, right? That would be one form of barriers to entry. The other thing, of course, to set up a shop, it will mean that you would have to look for a physical space, you have to sign a list, you have to renovate the place, on and on and on. And so there are many aspects that you would have to look into. And arguably, that might not be something that many of us it's able to plunk in that kind of money to start that business itself. So once again, again, there is some kind of barriers to entry. But what about in the digital space? Now, in the digital space, there are actually very few, if any, barriers to entry. The only barriers to entry that I can think of, it's your imagination. Because as long as you are able to think about something that you are able to transact over the internet, right, in digital means, if you're able to do that itself, you can just about hire anyone to help you hack together a website and to be able to put together all the moving parts so that you can start selling. And that's essentially what my sister-in-laws did. They didn't create their own Shopify site. They actually got someone to do it for them. And so when you think about a digital business, one of the key benefit is that the barriers to entry is really, really low. Now, having said that, when the barriers to entry it's very, very low, it doesn't mean that just because you have an idea, you should dive deep into it and you should just start straight away. And so I always tell my friends, if you're young and you have no commitments, sure, by all means, take the plunge and start your version of Facebook. But if you're someone like me at my age with commitments, with kids, with a mouth to feed, then obviously you want to be a bit more cautious in a sense. But in fact, what I'd like you to do is to be able to embrace the mindset of an investor. And what I mean by that is that before you actually dive into any topic or any idea that you had in mind, the first thing that you want to do is to investigate. So, investigate essentially just means that you have to do your research. And doing a research means that you have to look at the idea that you have. Is it going to solve somebody else's problem or is going to help someone achieve their goal? Right? Until and unless you're able to establish that, you really don't have a business because let's face it, you and I are not in the position to create demand. We are not Apple, we are not Amazon, we are not Google, right? So the first thing you want to do is you want to be able to investigate whether the idea is going to solve a problem or it's going to help people achieve a goal or achieve a desire, for example. That's the first thing that you must do. The first prong essentially is to investigate. Now, after you investigate, it might present to you an array of ways that you could do in order to achieve your goal. So, assuming that after investigating, you find out that yes, this idea is actually not just feasible and viable, it's also desirable by your end users. And so, you want to start doing that. But there may be many, many ways to achieve that goal itself. Say, for example, when I'm starting my digital business, I could help people with managing their social media accounts, which I did. I can help people make videos, which I did. I can help people strategize their social media content strategy, which I did. I can even help people with their LinkedIn profile, which I did. But there are many ways that you could actually arrive at your goal. What you want to do next is then to eliminate all the various aspect of it, right? And what I mean by eliminate is everything looks fancy, right? When you after you investigate it and you find that hey, this is actually a viable idea and you want to execute. But then you find that there's so many ways that you could do. I could do this. I can do this. I can do this, and that is where I would ask you to eliminate all the distraction and just focus, right? Just focus on that one thing that you would do. So, if your one thing is going to be podcasting, then do podcasting well. If your one thing is going to be live streaming, then make sure you do live streaming well and you show up all the time, right? It doesn't have to be every day. It just have to be consistent according to a particular schedule. Because, if you some days if you decide to broadcast, some days not to broadcast, then your viewers will be confused, right? So you need to stick to a schedule itself, and you need to eliminate all the other things and just focus on that one thing. Okay, so investigate, eliminate. Now, once you have eliminated all the distraction and come down to focus on one, maximum two things that you are going to do to help you get there, the next step really is to be able to look at, what aspect of it can I delegate, and what aspect of it can I automate. Now, delegating would mean that this thing that needs to be done, it cannot be done by writing a program. It cannot be done by writing several lines of code. It cannot be done by writing a macro, right? It has to be done by a person. So, take for example, when I was doing videos, one of the key, most highly requested service is actually transcription services. Now, transcription can be done by human, it can also be done by machine and human, or it can be done absolutely by machine itself. So, for instance, for me, when I look at transcribing my videos, what did I do? Did I look at human? Did I look at human and machine? Did I look at machine only? No, the only thing that I did was I looked at, because I'm fortunate that YouTube and Google, for that matter, it's very nice to me when it comes to the auto transcript, the auto captions. And so it's about 90, 95, sometimes 99% accuracy. And so what I do is I essentially just feed my video into YouTube, have it auto generate the captions for me, and then I just download the SRT file. If all this sounds foreign to you, don't worry. I mean, this is not something that you would need to be bothered about unless you are doing videos. But what I'm saying here is that when you have a series of tasks to do, you need to ask yourself, are you the best person to do it? If not, then you want to think of whether can you automate that process, right? I'm a big fan of automation. In fact, I've automated just about everything that I can possibly do. So I automate that. Now, once I have automated everything that I can, the next aspect of it is I want to see, are there things that I can delegate. Now, this is the part where I kind of fall short because I am not so good at delegation. I'm learning still, but one of the key aspects is once you get a hang of delegating, and one thing that I've learned through my years of delegation is that you do not delegate results, but you delegate a process, right? So the third and fourth prong essentially is look at things that you're doing, what aspect of it, ask yourself, what aspect of it is it's best done by you that only you can do, right? And what aspect of it needs to be done by another person, and what aspect of it needs to be automated or can be automated. So for me, the way I look at it is I look at my entire workflow and I look at what is it that can be automated. I do that first. And then once I'm left with the rest of it that cannot be automated, that's when I look at delegation, or that's when I look at sitting down and essentially, doing the task myself. So for instance, right now I am putting together this book teaching people how to pre-sell their courses, their online courses. I'm, because all the information, all the knowledge is in my head. So the only best person that could do this is me. However, later on, when it comes to formatting, for example, I could get one of the software to do it, or I could hire someone to actually do that for me. So really, you have to be concerned about the way that you are deploying your time in order to achieve your goal. Well, that said, I mean, I'm a hands-on person. I am someone who loves to tingle with things, and so inevitably there are certain things that yes, I could delegate, yes, I could automate it, but I still prefer to kind of do it myself, right? So that's just a habit that I need to get rid of sometimes. Now, one more bonus for you with regards to this framework itself, because I say it's a four-prong framework. So the first one is investigate, you eliminate, you automate, and then you delegate, right? So once you have all this four framework itself, that's a hallmark of a digital business. Now, if I can give you a fifth one, a bonus one, and that fifth one, the fifth prong of this framework itself is to educate. Well, why do I say that? Now, a lot of time, the way of thinking about doing business is that you only want to give value when someone returns you the favor by giving you money. So let me say that again. You only want to give value once the other person has returned the favor by giving you money. So, for example, if you are a coach, you would only want to coach someone if someone say that, yes, I will hire you and I will pay you for you to coach me, right? I mean, you are not unless you're just starting out and you need that number of hours. Otherwise, it's you're just not going to say that, well, I'm just going to do it for free, and then later on you can decide whether you're going to pay me or not. And so that's the conventional way of transaction. But in the digital space, it's actually very, very different. And many people I realize cannot get over this mental block, because once you are able to get over this mental block, then really the sky's the limit. And essentially, this is the thing. You want to be thinking about the following. You want to think about, how can I provide value to my people? And in fact, I want to provide so much value, such great value, that they will come back to me again and again and again. And so the best way to do that is essentially to educate people. And so if you want to learn how to educate people, because every one of us are every one of us is born a doer, right, to do things, but not every one of us is born to teach. So if you want to teach, you want to educate your customers, your prospects, and you have no idea how to do that, then I would like to invite you to, you know, send me a message, leave me a comment, and I'll be more than glad to share with you what are some of the things that you can do to start teaching your audience. And let me say that in the online space, there is no, there is very little barriers to entry. So if you are not going to teach your prospect, if you are not going to teach the very people who is going to buy from you, your competition is going to do it. And when the competition starts doing it, you would have somebody else to deal with. But if you start now, you will be further along and you'll be able to establish yourself in the place, in the space at a better pace. All right. And so with that, I invite you to, leave me a comment if you want to learn how to teach. And more importantly, if you have a question for me with regards to digital business, make sure you send me a message or leave me a comment. If you like this video so far, make sure you subscribe. And if you like it, if you want more content like this, make sure you subscribe. If you like this video, make sure you give it the thumbs up. And it's really helpful, and it really does a lot for me. It means a lot to me. With that, thank you so much, and wear a mask when you're going out. Bye bye.